Welcome everybody. We're really excited to have you here at the Twitter Meetup in Austin. And thank you so much to the... What? Oh. I can speak over the music. Thank you so much to the Capitol Factory for hosting us. This is an awesome space. I'm loving the 16th floor of this incredible building. It's my first time in Austin. I'm really loving the city. Oh, yay! Oh, it's great. The best thing is I haven't worn a jacket since I stepped off the plane. I'm from San Francisco, so that's a big deal. Let's see, clicker, do you work? Aha! I'm Erin Schumacher. I'm a developer advocate on the Fabric team at Twitter. A lot of people ask me, what does this mean, developer advocate? What do you actually do? Basically what we do, our team, we're the conduit between the development community worldwide and Twitter, which sounds like an enormous, meaty task, so we can break that down a little bit. One of the first things that we do is we come and bring Twitter to you. We talk to you about our platform and our technology. We let you know what we have to offer, so you can leverage that to build the best businesses and startups and side projects and make the best software that you can. Secondly, we're understanding how you're using the Twitter platform right now. And this is probably the most fun part of my job because I get to look at cool business ideas every week. People are doing such cool, innovative things with Twitter. Last week, I was reading about a startup that was using tweets to tell people whether they should buy or sell different stocks. People are doing such cool things, and that's really an amazing thing that I get to do. And finally, and this is probably the most important part, we're listening to what you have to say, and we're bringing that back to the Twitter product team. And that's huge. We want to hear your stories. Come talk to us after this talk. We want to hear your situation, what your needs are, what you're excited about, because we want to build the best tools and software for you to use. We are your advocates in Twitter, which is why we call it developer advocacy. So we're reachable through a lot of communication channels. You can email us, you can tweet at us, we're on forums, we put out content. But by far the most important way that we come out and do this is by physically coming out and doing this, which is why we're here in Austin, so we can have a conversation with all of you. And we take this very seriously. That ridiculous bus in the middle there is the bus that the whole team rode in after our annual convention last year. We went to 22 different cities, then we kind of extended that around the world. We didn't take the bus at that point, but, and we learned so much from talking to developers like you guys. One of the biggest things that we've been learning is that the Twitter data network itself is probably one of the most powerful things that businesses can leverage. So there are over 300 million monthly users of Twitter now, and that number's just going up all the time. We have users in almost every country, maybe every country. Maybe there's some tiny country that doesn't use Twitter, I don't know. And they're talking about every issue imaginable. Anything you would want to know about how people feel worldwide about a topic, an industry, a product, you can find that information on Twitter. What you're seeing right there is something we put together for the election in 2014. We're analyzing different issues and how people are talking about those in different areas of the country. And basically fill in the blank. Any issue, any topic, you can find out what people are thinking, feeling, how they're consuming through Twitter. And everybody knows that news breaks on Twitter first. Sometimes Twitter is the only place where news breaks. And this has a tremendous human impact. Everybody knows about that. But what people might not know is the business impact of that as well. Do you guys remember this image?
Yes. Yeah.
For anybody that doesn't remember, there was a ridiculous plane crash in Taiwan where someone caught video of it coming in sideways over the bridge. It was absurd. And this broke on Twitter. Someone tweeted this. And there's a company called Data Miner that basically analyzes tweets coming in from all over the world and tries to find what's news. And they identified this as news 15 minutes before anybody else did. And that's huge. That might not seem like a lot of time, but in the news industry, that's an eon. So they have a competitive advantage because they can get to news faster using Twitter data. So they're selling this to the New York Times, people like the New York Times. They're selling it to people like CNN, the Wall Street Journal. And they're a startup that's got $130 million in funding, and they're valued at over $1 billion. And they did all this with Twitter data. So what's going on right now for us is we've got Fortune 500 companies coming to us and asking, how can we leverage this? How can we drive business insights using your data? So we're very excited to partner with IBM now to make that happen. So I'm going to share with you an IBM spot that they put together that's pretty cool and gives you an idea of what they're thinking. Oh no.
Sorry.
Technical difficulties, I feel like, are just
Required as part of the presentation.
happens for everyone.
Barbara just bought a bike. She wrote a tweet about it. You can't learn much from that. But take data from millions of tweets, combine that with your company's supply chain and sales data, apply IBM analytics and expertise, and all of a sudden you can learn which bikes to build, what to make them from, where to sell them. Because Barbara and the world just told you how to build a better bike. There's a new way to work, and it's made with IBM.
So I hear we actually have some people from IBM in the audience. Where are you guys? Cool. This is awesome. Thank you so much for coming. Come chat with us. We're really excited about what we're building with you guys. So that about wraps up what I wanted to talk about. We're going to take a deeper dive into Fabric, which is our mobile development tool set, and then with Val. And then Chris is going to talk to us about open source platform and what Twitter is doing around open source. One quick final thing, if you are tweeting about this event and using that hashtag, #MeetTwitterDev, we are giving something mysterious away at the end of the night. So stay tuned, stay tweeting. Thanks. Now, Val.
I did not touch it. How were the burritos? Sorry. Oh, stop. I didn't even get one. So this is a screenshot of an app that I was working on a couple years back. And my PM came over to me like, gotta fix this. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't know what line of my code is crashing. I don't know what device the user is using. He was very good in explaining what the error is. Are others running into this? Probably, I don't know. So my point is that Twitter had the same problems with our portfolio of apps. So Vine, Periscope, the Twitter app, it was crashing. It was not very good to fail well. Everyone remembers that? No?
Yes, I remember Phil.
Yeah, fail well. So my name is Val. I work as a developer advocate, like Aaron, on the Fabric product. Who here is actively writing a mobile app? Okay. Who is using Fabric? Yes. You get shirts.
How about cars? I prefer cars. You get it.
Toy car?
I'll go for that too.
Okay.
As long as it's a Model X, okay?
All right. Come see. So what is Fabric? Fabric is a set of tools that address common development challenges. How to make your apps more stable, more reliable, how to keep users engaged, how to make money off your app. So Fabric comes into 4 kits: Crashlytics, Twitter, Digits, and Mopub. Crashlytics and Mopub were acquisitions that was made by Twitter back in 2013, 2012, I believe. So, sort of fun fact, Twitter was using Crashlytics, and then Twitter bought Vine, and Vine was using Crashlytics. So there's like, shit, we better get Crashlytics. Those two plus the Twitter itself, which at the time included Digits, became the Fabric trifecta. So each kit essentially solves a common development challenge: quality, growth, identity, remedy. So let's chat about quality first. Crashlytics offers 3 solutions. Crashlytics itself, it's a crash reporting tool. You install it, your app's in the wild, it crashes for someone, you go to the dashboard, you see how many users is it crashing on, where, which method, and then you hopefully can fix it, release it, and close the bug. Answers, which is our analytics solution, we like to call it opinionated, which means basically that we don't send you, megs and megs of just raw data, and you have to like figure out, okay, is this important? Is it not important? So we have metrics that we think are actionable, and that like how many daily users we have, how many of them are crash-free, and based on that you can make sort of adjustments to your app. And last but not least is beta. So beta is our build distribution solution, where if you want to test your app prior to pushing it to the App Store, you want to send it to your friends, to your colleagues, internally or externally, you can make a test build and send it out via email. So what I want to do is just show you the Crashlytics dashboard so you can see it. So I was actually at the iOS developer meetup last night. Some folks were there. So I wrote an app, there was a crash in it. So here's the crash. It happened on this line, in this method. If you are iOS developer, you're probably familiar with DSIMs. We automatically upload them, so you can see exactly where the crash occurred. You can see which iOS version you were using. You can get some more details. During the demo, I was running it on a simulator, so you can see more data. So that's answers. No daily active users right now. There's one yesterday when I ran it. You get some stats, sort of what's happening with the app. And beta, that's pretty simple. So I invited myself, and I got the invite. I didn't accept it, nor did I install the app or launched it. So if you're working on an app, you would invite maybe your testing team. They would get an email, say, hey, so-and-so invited you to install the beta build, and then you can install it. Question?
Line back here. Were those symbolicated crash logs?
Yeah, we upload the DSIMs. Automatic, yeah, in the back. And feel free to sort of ask questions. Okay, cool. So that's that.
So real quick, with Crashlytics, have
Yeah.
you guys considered adding anything where like a bad event occurs that's not a crash that I'm aware of as an app developer? And
You can do it on Android, not on iOS yet. So you can catch up sessions. Good question, you got a shirt.
Things like that. That means there are no custom events, no other crashes.
There, in answers, there are custom events. So in other words, you can say, like, say you have a Uv controller that you're not sure if people are using. You can put a custom event and then see if it's being used or not.
Okay. So help me understand. Answers is different than Crashlytics.
So Crashlytics is the kit. So Crashlytics itself, that's the crash reporting. Answers, that's analytics. And beta, that's the build distribution. So growth. How do you attract users, keep them engaged over long term? TwitterKit allows you to work with our network natively. So a couple examples, in Swift, half a dozen lines to get the sign in with Twitter button in your app. If users sign into your app, they can post content from your app. That drives hopefully traffic back to your app or website. We can now also, well, you as developers can now get email addresses from users. So they have to say, yes, I'm okay with that, or no, I'm not. It's not enabled by default, but you can send us an email, support@fabric.io, so we can whitelist your app. Another cool feature is timelines. So we can do user timelines, which are just the handle, all the tweets from that handle. Search timelines, which is that you're searching for Meet Twitter Dev. Or collection timelines, that's the new one. Collections are kind of like Twitter lists on steroids. So you can either hand curate it via TweetDeck, which is our app or the website, or using an API. So you can do like multiple lists plus search for a hashtag plus your secret sauce. So an example would be like an NFL team, they have an app so they can have all the players' handles plus the hashtag for the game day plus some hand-selected tweets from fans or something like that. So digits, that's probably my favorite kit. So typically when you're working with, on mobile or web, and you have to authenticate users, you should use email password or social login like Twitter or Facebook. I forget my passwords all the time. I use one password on the wall. It's kind of flaky at times. And then if I downloaded an app and say, okay, sign in with Twitter, and then suddenly oh, this app can read your timeline, post on your behalf, this, that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not so cool with that. So digits allows you to authenticate users based on the phone number. In other words, the user enters the phone number, gets a text message back with a PIN, enters the PIN, we validate that everything's okay, and then we issue you as a developer an ID, a stable ID that you can use to build your auth with. So store it on the device, upload it to your backend, store it in the cloud, so it's up to you. And I mean, we've done this tour, this world tour in Asia, in Brazil, and we've seen massive uptick in conversion rates of apps that use phone-based primarily auth, as opposed to social or passwords. So if you're targeting sort of growing markets, I suggest you check that out. So I'll do a little demo in Swift. It's super simple to integrate. One-handed demo coming up. Okay, so project, we'll do single view application, do widgets. Austin, we'll use Swift, we're not timeless. Okay, cool. So Fabric ships via Mac app for iOS or via plugins in Android. So we support IntelliJ, Eclipse, and Android Studio. So for Xcode, we just need to find the project. Then you see that's basically you pick the kit that you want to install. So in this case, I'll go with digits. I need to copy this build phase so you can onboard the app on the back end. Paste. So let's build this puppy. Cool. So it detected that we're trying to import something. That's the digits framework files. We'll just drop it in. Finish. Okay, and now it gives me a snippet to initialize digits. So I'll just go into my app delegate. Paste this. Paste this. So Fabric with, that's how you init the kit. So in this case, I'm just using digits. If I was using more, I would just append the comma. So just add it here. And add it here. So let's run it. Okay, so this is done. So I'll just unlock my phone. Here's my phone number. 415-654-3291. Don't call me. I made this joke yesterday. Sorry. Okay, so I got the pin. 553893. I have two-factor auth enabled. It's not on by default, but you can do it. So 3118. And that's it. So nothing. I mean, I'm not doing anything with the session, so it just pops back the screen again. But yeah, in this case, it would return me a user ID that I, as a developer, can store it somewhere on the phone or just upload it to, I don't know, Parse or something. Don't use Parse. No, I'm just kidding. Parse is awesome. So Digits is available on iOS, Android, and on the web. On the web, it's a tiny JavaScript library, so you still need the phone to actually get the SMS, but you can log into a website through this. It's out in 216 countries in 28 languages. In other words, we read the locale on the phone and then send the SMS based on the language that you have on the phone. It's free. Twitter was originally, believe it or not, an SMS company. The 140 limit comes from the length of SMS. I think it's like 120 plus like 30 for the handles and whatnot. All the kits are free, by the way. Just saying. So last but not least, we got Meetup. So Meetup makes you money. Yeah, I like money. So the goal is basically to monetize your app most effectively, no matter if you're just a one-man shop or a large enterprise. So we offer there's 3 ways to work with it. Direct ads. So let's say I don't know, Budweiser approaches you, they want to advertise into your app. Meetup will serve that ad for free. If you want to work with another network like iAd or Facebook, we can do it as well. And all ad requests by default go to our marketplace, Meetup marketplace, where basically the advertisers in the marketplace compete with your network, and whoever offers more money, that's who gets shown in your app. So Meetup works across all ad formats. You can do banners, you can do full screen interstitials. Maybe you're doing like a video app, so the video might do better, or you can do Twitter style, where the ads are native and they're embedded in the content tweet. So it's available at Fabric.io via the Mac plugin for iOS, or the plugins that integrate into the Android IDEs. We recently open sourced Twitter and Digits Kit on Android. Hopefully we're going to do it for iOS relatively soon. So I think I'm going to invite my colleague Chris, who heads our open source initiatives. And he's going to talk about how we use the different open source projects in our infra. Thanks, everyone.
All right, how's it going, everyone? My name is Chris Anizik. It's a tough last name, as you can see, but I have the convenient Twitter handle of @CRA. I have a really fun job at Twitter, where essentially we help decide what software Twitter open sources, and also what software we don't. We also have a team of developer advocates that work for the open source office to essentially help us push code back upstream to projects we depend on. So for example, a lot of you companies who are using and storing data and maybe building analytic solutions are probably putting that data in Hadoop, right? So we have a team that helps potentially upstream patches back to Hadoop in a much easier fashion than we would normally be able to do. But the purpose of my talk is kind of to talk a little bit about how Twitter itself, A, leverages open source software, and B, the kind of software that we help actually power Twitter.com. So when you send a tweet. From my other colleagues earlier today, from like Val, you've heard kind of about like the Fabric platform and the Twitter platform itself. I'm going to talk about the stuff under the scenes, under the API, the stuff that actually powers our services. So. To kind of start things off with a thought is I've been working on open source for a long time, and I remember a long time ago it's like we were fighting against Microsoft, and like open source wasn't adopted as as much as it is today. But today is absolutely amazing. Like if you look at your iPhone or your Android device and you go in your settings and you go to like legal notices, you'll see there's like hundreds and hundreds of bits of open source software that ship now on your phones, even cars. If anyone's lucky to own a Tesla here, you can actually go request a book of open source software that comes with your Tesla. It's absolutely crazy. So, with that in mind, to me, like it's just amazing to see how things have changed over the years. So it shouldn't be a surprise that Twitter itself is built on open source software. we've had humble beginnings as a simple Rails app. So, little Rails, on top of MySQL with a little memcache sprinkled on top. And that got us pretty far. But eventually, as we grew to hundreds and hundreds of millions of users, we started to use all sorts of different technology. And so if you could look at the slide, like this is basically how many open source projects I could find that we use and try to jam all their logos on one slide. So if you see anything interesting here that intrigues you, feel free to ask me after this talk is done. We'll have a Q&A session. But part of our attitudes towards open source is, outside of like it just being freely available for us to use and we don't have to pay for it, there's this notion of being able to scale our engineering team. So if a lot of you are companies that are trying to hire engineers, it's really hard to find people. And you honestly can't hire everyone, and you can't hire like all the smartest people. So one way to actually get really smart people to work for you is to use open source software that they're also working on and developing. So in essence, you get to scale your engineering workforce that way, and it's actually worked wonders for us at Twitter. And as a result, has actually dictated how we think about open source in general at the company. So our attitudes are basically changed where if we develop something that's not core to the business, let's open source it, right? So one common example is, it's the famous example because a lot of people use it because people really hate working on CSS, but Bootstrap is very famous. So how many people you have used or touched Bootstrap here? Yeah, so it's unbelievable because in terms of like the origin story, the two folks who created Bootstrap walked into my office and were like, "Hey, Chris, can we open source our internal CSS toolkit?" And I'm like, it's just another one of these things, right? I'm a back-end person, so I was like, "Oh yeah, just do it." And I was wrong, right? And now it became it's the most popular project on GitHub. We use it. It actually grew outside of Twitter, so it's we actually don't even maintain it anymore. There's a huge community of people that do it, and we essentially, with my company hat on, we reap the benefit, and also everyone else reaps the benefit out there. Another silly example recently was I don't know how many of you ever had to add web emoji to any of your apps. It's a big pain in the ass because there's licensing issues with emoji and it doesn't render well in different browsers. So we're like, all right, forget this. We'll just build our own and open them. And so with this, it's unbelievable. People have already contributed emoji back to us as the Unicode specification evolves, but also folks at WordPress, they're like, "Hey, we'll use this." And so basically any WordPress blog or WordPress.com based thing that you go to is using Twimoji. Awesome. So we all stand to benefit. Another thing that we've done in the past is we've kind of taken a nice view about open sourcing bits of our infrastructure because what ends up happening is when you get to a certain size, you scale in interesting ways. Like if you look at companies, like Netflix, Twitter, eBay, and so on, we have to handle a lot of traffic. So a long time ago, we decided to, open source parts of our infrastructure in terms of how we actually run services at Twitter. It was heavily inspired by the way Google does things. There's a saying: you hire a bunch of ex-Google engineers that will try to rebuild everything they had at Google. It's just the way they are. So we essentially did that for part of our infrastructure, and it's insanely popular these days. You have companies like Netflix, Apple recently announced that they're using it. Every time you speak to Siri, you're using code that Twitter helped develop. So it's quite awesome. So let's actually get to the core of my talks, which is about what actually happens behind the scenes and what open source software do we actually use to help power when you actually send a tweet out. It's a fun example because a lot of people don't appreciate the complicated bits. So let's start with a simple example. You tweet I love Justin Bieber, or hey, I love this event. It goes out. What happens? First step is you hit something called the Twitter front end, TFE. It's essentially our fancy HTTP reverse proxy. What's important about this is it's built on a open source project called Netty. Anyone familiar with Netty at all here? Hey, all right. Woo-hoo. Yeah, so legit, you guys can handle some traffic, but hopefully. Netty's worked out great for us. What's really interesting is that we were initially, I mentioned we were on a Rails platform, but over the years we migrated to JVM, and Netty was one of the reasons we did that. So it's an underrated piece of technology, but Netty only gets you half of the way there. So once you start defining services and how your application works, you're going to have to deal with things like failover, back pressure, and all the boring things like metrics and logging that you have to do with your services. So we built something called Finagle, which is essentially a service layer on top of Netty. It handles all that for you. It's a great bit of technology. It's used by a lot of companies that people don't appreciate that. Some of them, or even our competitors, like well, depends how you define competitors, but Pinterest, Tumblr, SoundCloud, Nest, all these folks are using this technology and actually helping us and improving things, which is awesome. So very interesting bit of technology that's worked out for us. So back to our tweet timeline. So eventually, your tweet goes out, hits the API. Oh my gosh, we need to store it somewhere. So where are we going to store it? Historically, MySQL has been the Twitter database of choice. Yes, it's old, but it's pretty rock solid and works. We don't use Mongo. Sorry, well, not intentionally, but acquisition sometimes try to sneak Mongo in. It does the job, and we've built some interesting technology on top of it in terms of, hey, there's only so much you can fit in one database. You're gonna have to shard them and deal with replication and so on. So we've open sourced a lot of our work on GitHub. There's a fork out there of MySQL that we maintain on a GitHub repository. Contains a lot of fixes that we've done to make it scale for Twitter. But the interesting thing is, about a year ago, we were talking to our friends at Google and Facebook, and they also had public forks of MySQL. And how about we actually go work together and work on one fork and hopefully do our best to pressure the changes back upstream to Oracle. So that's what we did, and we came up with a funny name, WebScale SQL. As kind of a, but we couldn't call it MySQL because they'd be angry, or so we chose WebScale as a little troll. So it's worked out. Next step is essentially, Twitter has a unique process of fan out. So once you kind of tweet out, your tweet gets stored, you eventually have to fan it out to people's timelines. So what this essentially means is each Twitter user has a timeline, right? It's built based on who you follow, right? And so what Twitter does behind the scenes is actually, to make this very performant, we have to cache everyone's timeline essentially in memory. And that's essentially what we do for the majority of our users. And what ends up happening is, if you have if you're Lady Gaga or someone that has an unbelievable amount of followers, we have to go and basically update the new tweet ID for each of the followers before they actually see them. But the good thing about this, this type of information, like list of IDs, super easy to cache. And we take advantage of a caching store called Redis. Not sure, people familiar with Redis at all? Yeah, it's good. Yeah, much better than Memcache, which we used before. But the key thing is we built. So eventually, when you start caching all these things, you can only fit so many in one machine. So you have to end up clustering them and all this wonderful stuff. So we developed a clustering solution for Redis and Memcache called Twin Proxy, which works extremely well and is actually used by some of the most high traffic sites in the world. So if you ever go to Wikipedia for some crazy random bit of knowledge, that whole infrastructure is being fronted by Twin Proxy behind the scenes, and of course our friends at Pinterest and Vine and so on within Twitter use it. All right. Next step. So after we essentially deliver the tweets to timeline so people can see them, we have to make them available for search and index them, because people tend to use Twitter a lot for search. Anything happens, people are going to search, right? It's pretty wild. Most people think of Twitter as just hey, you just follow people, see stuff, but it's actually one of the most heavily trafficked search engines in the world. Anytime there's an event, anything crazy, people immediately go and search for anything, right? So our search technology originally was built on MySQL, which was kind of, it worked until we grew to hundreds of millions of users. So eventually we bought a small company called Semis, and some of their stuff was based on a project called Lucene. So I'm sure a lot of companies in here that actually have some search interface to their application are probably either using Elastic or Solr, right? Yes, developers. Yeah, there's one person. Yeah, so both these technologies are powered by Lucene, and we've made some changes to Lucene to take advantage of some things that are unique to Twitter. So it's not like we're dumping unstructured text. We know that tweets are 140 characters only, right? So you could do some optimizations on how you actually index things. moving on. So next part is eventually once you kind of tweet out, store this stuff, make it available for search. The other thing you kind of have to deal with is you have a team of data scientists and other people that are wanting to extract information like trends, right? So if you log on Twitter, you usually see what's trending in your area, right? That has to be developed somehow. And so for Twitter, we store the majority of this type of data, including our logs, all into Hadoop. I'm sure that a lot of you that work in the space are doing similar things. We have tens of thousands of Hadoop servers. We're one of the larger clusters out there. Way too many Hadoop jobs on a daily basis. So two unique things that we've kind of developed and shared with the world around Hadoop to get it to a point that scales for Twitter service is one is Parquet, which essentially is a storage format. So by default, Hadoop's the way it stores its logs and data essentially is very inefficient, and we helped develop a new format to do this based on work that Google did. Like Google wrote a research paper, people took the research paper and implemented the solution. That's essentially what happened. That's actually how Hadoop came around too. So we partnered with Cloudera and did it. It's available. Highly recommend you take a look at it if you're interested to get some cost saving on your Hadoop cluster. Twitter has saved a lot of money in moving to Parquet. The other thing is, how many people have had to write a Hadoop job in your life? No? I sympathize. So yeah, it's pretty bad. So previously I mentioned that we developed Finagle and we chose Scala as the language to implement Finagle. A lot of our engineers started to like Scala, and it's a lot. It's more concise than say Java is. So we decided to build a little language on top of Scala to write Hadoop jobs, and it's worked out really well for us. Used again by our friends at Pinterest, Etsy, and so on. So they all work together to make this a better tool to deal with Hadoop. And
are those just MapReduce jobs?
Yeah, some of them are MapReduce jobs. Some of them are also streaming based. So Scalding could work. Technically, we have an open source project called Summingbird that you could write your jobs in Hadoop, and Summingbird will figure out whether to patch them or use a streaming source. So to kind of end things off and get our Q&A going on is we've built an amazing set of technology at Twitter. We're one of the few companies that actually have to scale so crazily and in a short amount of time. So the great things that we've built with Fabric and shared with people to use for a freely basis, please take advantage of that. Use it in your mobile apps. If you find issues, talk to us, report them. We have a great forum. If you're looking to scale your infrastructure, take a look at our stuff on GitHub. It's all freely available. We work with tons of different companies. You could definitely save some headache, from potentially taking advantage of what we have. And also, two sites I kind of want to point out is our GitHub page, and also the kind folks at Twitter Dev have a great GitHub page that basically has tons of examples to either work with Fabric or our API. So if you want to learn how to work with Twitter and Node, Java, Rails, and so on, you'll find some great resources there. Other than that, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming to this event. And also, got to have surveys, right? Got to get some data. So please fill out our survey at bit.ly/TwitterDevBTX. And other than that, I'm going to bring up folks for maybe a little Q&A. Let's do it.
Thank you.
So thanks. You guys have any questions, or let's do this one by one then. Let's start with Nick.
Are you guys just using Parquet with MapReduce jobs, or have you guys looked at anything else that's using Impala?
Apollo, what's
Impala?
Oh, Impala. So we don't use Impala yet internally at Twitter, but Impala actually takes advantage of Parquet.
Right. That's what I thought.
Yeah. So no, we don't use that yet. Next question, yes, gentleman in the back.
What advantage do you get for using Clem proxy instead of the built-in Redis cluster layer?
So when we, so the question is why does Clem proxy exist when you could use Redis cluster? A long time ago, Redis cluster, I don't know if you would consider it stable. It's still kind of actively been developed, and if it's not there, you tend to build something on your own. So it's an option. We don't use it. We still use Clem proxy internally. Who has questions? Fabric?
Are you guys to improve answer by opportunities, improve the analytics that it gives, more user data, sort of Google Analytics gives you,
Like what?
Like, que essa parte que you got from the past few days are just the answers. Like, Google Analytics can also give you like demographics, like with gender, there are all sorts of crazy data.
Okay, so the question was, will we provide more data with answers, which is part of Crashlytics? You can actually download data for the past, it shows past 30 days, but there's an icon where you can like grab everything starting from day one. Are we going to add more user data? Probably. I mean, I can't give you a good answer to that. Yeah, like tell us what you need. Send us a note, support@fabric.io, and then I'll be happy to pass this to the PM of the team.
Any other questions? Yes, gentleman right there.
Do you guys have like a good like engineering blog that?
Engineering.twitter.com is our engineering blog.
Okay.
There's also one for Twitter developer. Yeah, just go to blog.twitter.com. You could find any of them.
Are you
Yes.
expecting to keep increasing the amount of use and getting to Apache Spark?
So the question is, are we going to use Spark at Twitter, or do we use Spark at Twitter? Spark is in the experimental rollout phase at Twitter, and it's very complementary to how we write jobs installing. So potentially yes, but right now it's an experimental rollout phase.
How do you decide what internal projects to open source?
It's always a tough question, right? So, it's unique on your own. It's unique on your business, right? So, Twitter essentially is a company where we make our money via advertising, data licensing, right? So, a lot of software for us is a means to an end. So, things like Bootstrap and front end stuff, like that stuff actually already comes down the wire, right? Minified. So, like it's already technically out there. So those are easy ones. Like things like our ad tech platform and stuff like that will never be open source. So some things are very easy to decide, some are not. And my team helps support that because now we're almost 2,000 engineers, and it's a lot of stuff that we build over time. But it's unique to each business. So. Yes.
How long does it take to go from that tweet to that end of the timeline? Is that something you tell us?
Depends. So fan out, right? Like Lady Gaga has a bazillion followers, updating, delivering the tweets to each of the timelines and refreshing, the information in Redis. It's going to take a little bit, but we generally sacrifice. It's super fast to read, but we sacrifice write potentially on very large followers, and that's fine because most users just want a nice experience when they use Twitter. Like, hey, refresh my timeline. Yes, it works, right? I don't get any nasty things.
So it's okay if one of Lady Gaga's followers sees it before someone else.
Yeah, we don't. Yes. Technically, it happens the way we have architected things. So yes. It's an interesting question. Yes, gentleman in the back.
How do you guys decide what to show for the last time you logged in, you missed out on that section on the top?
Yeah, the while you're away?
Yeah.
Yes. So the question is, how do we decide what we're going to show while you're away? I'm not actually sure, but it would obviously be a proprietary algorithm for Twitter. So I don't know. I mean, it's probably tweets that are engaging, right? Like tweets that have images or tweets that represent your interests. So behind the scenes, we try to model that and present that information to you. But other than that, I have absolutely no idea. That's not my domain of expertise. Any other questions? No one wants to be verified? No, I'm surprised no one asked that. Come on, Yes?
How do you get the translator back?
Do you actually have to translate? If you go to translate.twitter.com and actually translate in a language that they'll give you the translator badge. So, absolutely. It's just like, it's essentially like open source, right? Contribute, we'll acknowledge you, and then thank you. So, it's a great community, by the way, that we have. Yes?
Could you elaborate more on that? I'm
So if you go to, so there's a website. So Twitter a lot of times crowdsources our translations because there's so many languages out there, and there's actually very passionate communities out there, like the Catalan, right? Like they're adamant that their language gets adopted by the whole world for everything and is an option. So we decide to crowdsource this bit and offer strings people could translate in different communities. And like we do a little betting on our own, but it's completely available for anyone to contribute. So to me, it's great because it's one way that people may not be, deeply, technical, but like love, know tons of languages. They could totally contribute and make Twitter a better place.
Is there like a certain URL for that?
Translate.twitter.com. If you just Google Twitter translator, you'll find it. It's either translator or translate.twitter.com. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Yes, gentlemen?
Question on the translation. What happens when the translation is longer than 140 characters?
So we're not translating tweets. We're translating like strings in like an application. So like there's a string that says like name, right? And we want to translate that into all the different languages. We're not actually translating. I mean, we are translating tweets. We have an option to translate tweets. So sometimes if you see a tweet, you could say like, "Hey, translate automatically." But I believe Ryan remembers like we used Bing previously. It's Bing. So Bing is what we use and farm that out to do it automatically. Yes?
As far as the slides you're showing this evening, are those available anywhere?
We'll post them on SpeakerDeck or SlideShare. We'll send a tweet out.
Okay.
Any other questions? Oh, yes.
What would you say like most difficult challenges you have just as an open source team for Twitter? Just talking to the community or?
Let's expand on that question. So like so the question is like what challenges do we have as like an open source as an open source team dealing with whatever, right? Let's expand that to also like essentially I have the open source team. There's also a developer advocate team. We work with different communities and we probably face different challenges. But for us essentially is once you start using a lot of open source technology, it's really difficult sometimes to get your changes upstream. So what you end up doing is, as a company, you tend to fork things, right? So like we fork MySQL. The reason we do that in a public way is because it's really difficult to get those changes back up because you have to establish relationships with the people who commit the code in MySQL, the company that owns it, and so on. So I think that the hardest thing is trying to build all those relationships and making it easier for us to work with these communities that we depend on. I'm not sure, like there's other issues in terms of just like scaling in terms of all the engineers we have now, but I'll let maybe the developer advocate team could talk to that too, maybe Ryan.
No, that was pretty good.
Any other questions? Fabric, tweets, timelines, celebrities, favorite tweets? Yes.
So what do you guys think of MariaDB if you guys are making your own web scale SQL of the original?
It's another fork. That's so the question is, what do we think of MariaDB, which is essentially another fork of MySQL? We collaborate, but there's like open source politics involved in Oracle versus Monty and other things. So like we collaborate with them, but if you notice the folks that are part of web scale SQL are generally all kind of high traffic, web-based, LinkedIn, Twitter. So we tend to have similar problems versus maybe other companies who tend to use MySQL in a different way. So. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I saw a slide about bit or
yeah, get in. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's like a fancier wrap around exposing Twitter data, right, as a search. Are they reading directly from you, or are they doing their own processing, or like how's the process between you and them, or do Twitter devs work with them to develop that search?
So I'm Ryan, I work a little bit on the data side. So the question is, how does GitInf work, and how does GitInf provide data in and above the Twitter platform itself? Anybody here actually work with the Twitter streams before? Have experience, like read the Twitter streams? So there are actually multiple levels of it. The one that is very easily accessible is the sample stream, 1% of all tweets, which may not seem like a lot, but when you have 550 million tweets coming through, it's a statistically significant sample. We have that as the 1%. We also have the filter stream, so you can actually give it a set of terms, and then you can filter out what it is that you're interested in and get tweets specific to that topic. A little while ago, we used to have the Deca hose, which was 10%, and then we actually have the full fire hose. GNIP was an amazing company that actually had built on top of the fire hose, and they added additional attributions. So when the stream comes, and actually, to answer your question directly, they were getting the full fire hose, and they were adding attribution on top of it. So you can do better geolocation search, more precise filtering, as well as this level of enterprise-grade reliability. So a lot of the things that, that Aaron was talking about earlier were use cases that we've actually seen and brought to market through GNIP. And a lot of the partnerships that we have with these IBM people here are actually brought on through the GNIP platform to stream data. And that's, again, the full fire hose, 550 million tweets to thousands of companies across the globe. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Cool. And if you guys are interested in GNIP or interested in doing things with Twitter data, again, my name is Ryan. I'm happy to chat about kind of the things that you can do, some of the open source code samples that we have, and I just love geeking out over data. One last question, and then we'll get into this little raffle thing that we have. But yeah, it's right there.
Speaking of the sample streams, who chose those milliseconds, like 660 to 670?
So can you elaborate a bit more?
So the 1% is chosen based on the timestamp that's encoded in the status ID.
Yep.
And it's milliseconds 660 to 670.
This guy knows his stuff. I'm impressed. Do you know?
I don't know the historic reason so much.
We are not the ones, but find me afterwards, and I will do my best to find it. You know, obviously we share as much as we can, and if I can find that answer, I will absolutely do so.
It's probably some esoteric, like.
My guess is that someone has a 666 sense of humor. I could be wrong.
Okay. So maybe one more question since we skirted that one. Anybody? If not, all right. So we said that we would have a bit of a raffle, and so if anybody had actually tweeted, and there were a couple people who did, I'm literally just going to flip up for anyone who has Me Twitter Dev, stop it, round it goes, and is Marcus FNK here? Awesome, thank you. So we have a bit of a prize. Can anybody tell me what Marcus just won? An Apple Watch. Come on up, Marcus. Come on up.
It pays to tweet.
It's my third smartwatch.
Okay, oh, it's your smartwatch. Well, then give it to me. Awesome. Just a couple of really quick closing notes. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you guys for attending. We'll be back again at some point. But the fun's not over. A bunch of us are going to go down to Brazzers and drink. You guys are all welcome to come. Oh, sorry, Bangers. Bangers. You all come. And the other thing to note is that we have some food back there, so please take in some food, and thank you so much.
That took me a second.